From the trading desk of dailyforex.com, this is Christopher Lewis looking at the upcoming August 17th Forex session in the Euro US dollar. As you can see, Thursday was a pretty impressive, pretty strong day as the bulls came out in full force and pushed prices significantly higher. However, there are a lot of different things going on in this chart at the same time, and as such, the analysis isn't quite as clear as many people would think. One of the things to pay attention to is that we did in fact have a shooting star back on Tuesday, and I had mentioned that if it breaks lower, it could be worth getting involved in, but we may see a little bit of trouble there, and that's essentially what's happened. Now, looking forward, you always want to look at the bigger picture, obviously. And the trend is down. I don't really see any debate in that. But I personally see this as a bit of a rising wedge right now. And as such, for those of you that may not be familiar with this pattern, it's not the most common pattern, but it does seem to be reasonably reliable. What happens is we start to drift higher, but the range starts to tighten up. And as such, I probably should have drawn this a little better, but as such, what happens is eventually the markets coil up like a spring and have to be released in one direction or the other. This is a bearish pattern. It doesn't mean that we are going to fall apart, but having said that, it is with the trend, so I do tend to put a little more faith in it than maybe I normally would. Now, looking at this chart, there are some things that I see, and let me change colors here. There are things that I see that suggest to me that this might actually be worth paying attention to. We have this wedge that could be pushing prices higher, and it will eventually find the 125 I should say, where this is going to start to kind of come to a head here. Meaning that we're going to have to make some type of decision. So it would make sense that maybe naturally we go up and we find 125 and fall. Also of interest for me, let me go ahead and get rid of this here, is the fact that the 124 level is where we failed last time, and I see 124 to 127 as one big massive noisy area that's going to cause a lot of trouble for the buyers, I think. So regardless, I see high potential of a nice sell signal somewhere in the near term. But to play it a little bit more carefully, and even if you don't buy the whole theory of the rising wedge, and I have to admit it's not one of my favorite patterns, there's a couple other things that you can look at. If we break through this trend line, I mean, it's obviously a trend line, that's negative. And also, if we manage to break through all of this, that's support, so that's negative as well. So there's a lot of different reasons why, if we break down, say, 100 pips or so, you should be very interested in selling. As for buying, I've been saying for a while that I'm not going to do any of that until we get above the 127 mark. And I know that's a long way away, but I just see all of this noise here, and there's always the threat of some kind of negative euro headline that comes out. One of the biggest problems Forex traders run into is, they want to pick the bottom, they want to pick the top. The problem is when you pick the bottom, will you have the guts to hang on to it? And the answer is very decidedly no. I know of very few people who can do that. So the idea is to take the easiest trade, the path of least resistance. So that's why I'm interested in selling. Now, if we get over 127, it's a completely different conversation at that point. And at that point in time, I really have to start thinking about buying the euro. But right now, with the trend the way it is, I want that nice setup to sell it, or I can move on. We do have other pairs to trade. Far too many people get too concerned about where all the drama is, and I understand right now it's in the euro, but there are some very interesting pairs out there right now that could be looked into. For example, the Canadian dollar is interesting. Actually, it's very interesting against the euro if it keeps falling. There's the dollar yen, kind of an interesting pair as well at this moment in time. So either I get the setup I want, and that's the point of this video, somewhere in this general vicinity, or I just don't take the trade. Seems simple, but that is a lesson that most Forex traders simply don't learn.